Hello there, I'm Brit and I'm broadcasting out of the east of England into your homes, onto your phones. Welcome to my channel. And if it's the first time you're passing through, I'm sure you've heard it time and time again. Please click the like button. The like button kind of helps the channel. Subscribe if you want to hear more of me and interact with my subscribers. They're quite an interesting bunch. And for my subscribers, I just want to thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for just sticking with me, really. What I wanted to talk to you about today is stonewalling. Now, sometimes when we think about stonewalling, we think about narcissists. It's normally hand in glove when you think about stonewalling. But stonewalling can be executed by anyone. Sometimes I don't even know why they called it stonewalling, because it's something that's been happening for years. But all of a sudden it's been associated with narcissists, and now they've given it this name, which means that a person treats you like a stone. They become like a stone. They're not fazed by anything. They don't react. They just shut down physically and emotionally. And you're left wondering, how do I get out of this? How do I turn them around? And you can't, because usually it happens in an argument, or it could happen in just a conversation they don't like. And this is when narcissists come in. If you say something to a narcissist that they don't like, they will just shut down. And you're left almost pleading for them to speak to you. So I'm not talking about that extreme measure. I'm talking about generally in relationships, how stonewalling is destructive, unhelpful, and it's unhealthy. Because when you think about what stonewalling does, can you imagine? Most times when people stonewall, it's because, I'm going to read my notes afterwards, but I'm just going to tell you in a summary. So most time when people stonewall, it's because normally the men stonewall more than the women. Women tend to give the silent treatment, but men stonewall more. And they normally stonewall because they don't know how to communicate with their wives or their partners. They don't want to exacerbate the situation. They're trying to avoid conflict. Sometimes it's used to control people or to control partners. And what they're actually saying is, if they have an issue, and regardless of how big or small that issue is, it could be big in their minds, it might not be so big in their partner's minds, but whatever it is, they do not feel their partner can help them. They do not feel as though their partner can add value. They don't think that their partner is going to resolve the situation. They are in a negative mindset that says, what's the point of telling her? What can she do about it? What's the point of even discussing it? She might just lose her rag, and whatever they decide to say. Most men who stonewall, it's really out of punishment and control. Me not talk to her, you know. Me not like the way she talk to me. Me not talk to her, you know. She can't stand there. And they don't talk for goodness knows how long. That's how they deal with it. Trying to teach somebody a lesson. Anyway, I'm going to go through my notes now. You have the rough understanding about how it works and how people use it. So, yeah. So stonewalling is about the individual becoming like a stone. They shut down, close themselves off because they feel overwhelmed or physiologically drained. Remember, stonewalling does not apply when you explain to your partner you need time out, you can't respond now, you need a little space for a certain period of time, you need to collect your thoughts. If you say, I'll get back to you, because as long as you've given the silence an explanation and a time frame, that is not stonewalling. So I'm not talking about when you've had a row with your partner and you say, look, I need time out. When I've calmed down, I'll come and talk to you. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who just shut off and don't give any reason. You might think you're having a decent conversation, but whatever you've said has triggered something in that person. And rather they kind of say, look, I don't like the way you said that to me, or I'm going through this situation, or what you said triggered me and I need to talk to you about it. They don't do that. They just literally shut off in an instant. And you don't know what you said, you don't know what you've done, and they're not prepared to communicate that to you. And this can go on for goodness knows how long, till they're ready. So they think you've suffered enough, till you start pleading, oh, I'm so sorry, what did I say? Oh, please talk to me, I don't like it. I feel rejected, I feel abandoned, I feel, you're hurting me, and whatever people say when they're trying to get around people, almost pleading and begging with them to talk to them. And at that point, maybe they might just say, well, me never like the way you talk to me the other day, Me not like it. And you have to learn to talk to people better. You have to have respect. You have to respect I and I. Whatever, or whatever it is they say. And whichever way they say it. So, those being stonewalled, they feel rejected. They wonder why they're not a part of their life. They wonder, why can't you share your concerns with me? And they also wonder, has it got something to do with me? Because remember, they don't know the reason why somebody has stonewalled them. It's really unhealthy and it's quite sadistic. So those stonewalling, this is what I gather that they're thinking. They're thinking, and there's a variety of reasons, this is too overwhelming. I need time out. It will only make things worse if I speak to someone else. I need to resolve this issue myself. I feel angry, frustrated, embarrassed. It's better I keep my mouth shut and shut myself off. I don't want to talk to anybody. It's too difficult to speak about it. I don't want to admit that she or he was right and I'm wrong. They have difficulty communicating concerns. They don't want anyone else's opinion. They want to be able to sort things out themselves. They want to avoid conflict or stop things from escalating. Or they want to control, punish. They use it as emotional abuse. That's when it goes on the narcissistic spectrum. And sometimes it's just addictive. And, usually it's just a destructive arguing technique. And it is destructive. Because what can happen is if you just stop talking to somebody, whether it's for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you're having an interaction with somebody and and they ask you a question and you don't respond. That's stonewalling. Because there's no animosity at that point. Everything is, as far as the person being stonewalled is concerned, there was nothing that they said or did anything wrong, but they come up with this wall of silence. It could be for like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, it could be 24 hours, it could be 2 weeks. But that person is exercising control because that person determines when he or she is going to speak to their partner that they're stonewalling. But what happens when 2 people stonewall? You could have a situation where the man shuts down. Like I said, as research shows that it's the men that stonewall more than the women. So the man shuts down and decides, look, I'm not like this, you talk to me, I'm not talk to her. So she decides, well, if that's the way you want it, I ain't talking to you either. And she go and do her business and does her thing. The demise of the relationship. And then by the time the stonewaller is trying to bring it around, it's too late. Because what stonewallers don't understand is that it's damaging and destructive. And if a person who's quite healthy sees that behaviour, they're going to say, look, I don't want this. If they're unable to communicate with me, this is not good. If this is the way they choose to deal with things, I don't want a part of it. So whereas the stonewaller thinks, okay, I'm not going to give her an answer now. I'm not going to talk to her now. I'm just going to sort a few things out by myself. When I feel better, I'll talk. But it doesn't work like that in all situations. If somebody's needy or clingy, yes, she might be there waiting for you when you finished your stonewalling moment. But more than likely, that person who's being stonewalled would think, look, I really don't like the way this is making me feel. If this is the way that person deals with things, let them get on with it. So, whether you are attempting to talk about something that is upsetting you, explain your feelings about an ongoing area of conflict. When you are making every effort to address the problem. So, yes, there are some people, where a woman, when she sees her husband stonewalling her, she will try to make every effort to resolve it, probe, find out exactly what's wrong. And if that partner is not being vindictive or sadistic, he will come around and find, the error of his ways. But it's still done damage. It might not have done as much damage as it could have done, but you still leave the person who's stonewalled feeling empty and as though they're not good enough to confide in. Because if you imagine you're in a relationship, so-called relationship, you're in a relationship, and you as a partner are going through something and you do not feel that you can talk to your wife or your partner about it, and you prefer to shut down, whether it's something she said or not. It could be something she said, it could be something she did, it could be something you don't like about what she's done, whatever it is, but you decide you're not going to say to her, look, I don't like that. I don't like what you've done. You decide to shut down and leave that woman in the dark about why you are not speaking to her. That's not good. And what that woman is left feeling is that he's got a problem. He's not talking to me about it. That means I'm not that important to him. Because that's the translation. This isn't a real relationship, because in a real relationship or a genuine relationship, you share issues, you share problems. You don't go into a relationship if you're not healed and you can't talk about things. So you need to be able to talk about things. And if you decide you don't want to talk about things because you've got a bee in your bonnet about something, you're risking the relationship. You might think you have control and you might have it for a while. And the thing is with stonewalling, once a person does it the first or second time, it becomes a habit. And they think they're getting away with it. The woman keep coming round and probing and, are you all right? Yes, a woman can check in. You can check in on your partner. You can check in on your husband, but not in a what's the word? In a subservient way. You can just say, are you feeling any better now? If they're still in their mood, leave them. But not begging, oh, please, I don't like to see like that. Please talk to me. I don't know what I've done. Tell me what I've done wrong. You don't want to be in that place. That's what I'm saying. Because that's not going to help the issue. What you're doing is giving that person control. If that person wants to go into a stonewall, let them go into it. You get on with your life. And when they come out of it, if you choose to talk to them and ask them what the issue was, that you can do that. But say, listen, okay, I hear your issue, but next time you need to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, or you find that you can't talk about it, I'm not too sure whether you and I are going to be compatible. So, I think I read this, but I'll read it again. When you're making every effort to address a problem, whether you're attempting to talk about something that is upsetting you, explain your feelings about the area of conflict or try to reach a resolution. Because if your partner is pretending that you are not there, you're likely to reach a level of frustration or anger so high that psychologically and emotionally you'll check out as well. And that's what sometimes happens. One person stonewalls, the other person gets spiteful or just gets so frustrated they think, okay, I'm going to check out. And then the two people, you might as well say that's the end of that relationship, because it depends on who gives in first and why. So what happens after the stonewalling period? Well, the stonewaller arrogantly expects the relationship to go back to how it was. But he doesn't realise the damage has been done. Cracks have been made in the relationship. And cracks in a glass or cracks in a plate, one tap, and it falls apart. You can stick glue on it, it's not going to be strong. So stonewalling is almost like infidelity, because what you're telling your partner is that I don't trust you enough to disclose this with you. I prefer to talk with my friend AB. And I'm not saying you can't talk with friends about your situation, but you should be able to talk to your friends about your situation and get some opinions or something. But it doesn't mean you stonewall your partner or your wife. That's what I'm saying. So if you've stonewalled your wife for goodness knows how many days or how many hours, whatever it is, you can't expect that you go back and everything is hunky-dory, because you've hurt her. You've hurt that person who you've stonewalled, because you're not allowing them into your world. And as a partner, you should be sharing your world together. Regardless of how you feel about your world, you should have confidence in your partner to share it with her. And if you haven't got that confidence, it just means you're not there yet. As they say, you're not ready yet. So like I said, some people end it depending on the duration of the relationship. Sometimes some relationships, it becomes a habit. Stonewalling isn't actually a punishment. It becomes a reprieve. I mean, depending on the type of relationship, if somebody stonewalls you, you can actually be glad that they're stonewalling you, because you get a bit of peace. And you can get and do whatever you're doing. And then that's not really working for the stonewaller. So you'll see how quick they jump out of that stonewalling program. Anyway, like I said, stonewalling is harmful. The person who is silent has the power, and that creates an imbalance of power. They are the ones who are deciding when the relationship should reconnect, unless, of course, it breaks up. And this pattern of behaviour can be problematic. Recipients of stonewalling can feel emotional pain, reduced self-esteem, no meaningful existence. And that's what I mean when I say no meaningful existence. When you can imagine that you feel as though you're a part of your husband's life, and yet he's going through something and he doesn't feel confident enough to just share that with you. I mean, why is that? Is it because he said things to you before and you haven't been empathetic? Is it because you kind of snooty and snotty? Is it because they detect that you don't really care about their issues? So, but if it's none of those, if you've been quite warm and open and empathetic, considerate about his previous problems, he should be able to open up to you. So you have to ask yourself whether or not you are a part of the problem. Now, you have stonewalling, you have ignoring, and you have the silent treatment. The silent treatment goes on for ages. It can go on for years, the silent treatment. And that's normally women. You have ignoring, where somebody it's not that they've stonewalled you. It's not like you've had some kind of conversation and something went wrong and they've just shut off because they don't like what you've said, or they're using it to control you. Ignoring can just mean they're ignoring you for a little while until they get their act together. The three, they might look the same on the surface, but the three of them have a different root. And how they originate is different. So when they say no meaningful existence, by stonewalling is that coldness, the fact that you can't get through to your partner in order for you to help them because they're not allowing you to. So it's telling that person, I don't mean anything to you. And so that's why you're no meaningful existence. Loss of control. You can't control the situation. If somebody's shut you out and then somebody's not talking to you and somebody's just cold every time you try to talk to them, they totally ignore you, they look as though you're not even there. You're walking in, they're reading a newspaper. I mean, who the hell do they think they are? But that's what some people do. You come through the door, they're reading the newspaper or they're looking at a TV program and they don't even bat an eyelid. Not healthy. So, and then of course, the person who they're doing it to, what can they do? They can't start the conversation, even though the person who's stonewalling would probably like them to start the conversation, but also they want that person to come to them with deference. So if that person who wants to break the stonewall doesn't come with deference, that stonewall is still going to go up. And that person is not going to give in, so to speak. Because they're coming from a place of arrogance and pride and indignation. So there is nothing that the person who's being stonewalled can do once that wall goes up, that stone wall goes up. So they have got no control over the situation at all, apart from, unless they take control themselves and of the way they're feeling and decide, look, this is not for me. Personally, this is not for me. Stonewalling in any of its forms is totally unnecessary. So, and it also makes them feel rejected. I mean, somebody not talking to you, what are you telling them? I don't need you. That's what you're saying. I don't need you. I don't need to speak to you. I don't need to have anything to do with you. Rejection. That's what it is. The wall goes up. Your partner is on the other side of the wall. You're this side of the wall. And that person can't get through to you. That is rejection. And they also feel ostracized because you're leaving them by themselves. Especially if it's just a couple, there's no kids to distract you, and it's just you and the other person, and they've decided to stonewall you. And that person just, unless that person has got a lot to do and can keep herself busy, and who doesn't really care and who sees it as a reprieve, like I mentioned before, that person can feel ostracized if that man is her world. And normally they do it to victims who are their world and who they know will bend over backwards to get them to talk. And then they can also become depressed. You know, you have your husband or your partner in the house and they're not talking to you. You want to come home, share your news from work, and you see this miserable face looking at you. Personally, if I was to come in my yard and we see a face like that, we just tell him, look, no bother with it. No bother with it. No, because seriously, it's disrespectful. How dare you? The two of you live in a place and you have the audacity to ignore someone. At least say good evening. Acknowledge the person. Show respect. It's your wife. It's your partner. But that's when it's coming from a place of sadism and narcissism. That's when it's coming from that place. Trying to watch somebody squirm. A lot of times it backfires. So how long do you stonewall for? Depends on whether you can win the person over. Extending an olive branch, that's devastating if it's rejected. You're trying to speak to somebody and they're just putting the wall up and looking, you know, as stiff as a board. Who wants to go through that? It's devastating for the person. It's cruel. And then, even if you get through to that person, will you always be the one trying to extend the olive branch? Will you always be the one that's trying to make that person talk? In that way, you'll always be the one allowing him to control you and the way you feel. Bottling up hurt and anger damages the relationship. So that's what they tend to do. People who stonewall, they bottle up and it damages the relationship. All they've got to do is say, I'm feeling hurt by the way you handled the situation. I don't like what you said the other day. I don't like the way you said what you said the other day. They have this thing that they say, it's not what you say, it's the way that you say it. I've been accused of that so many times. I used to be called tactless, and I was always told that phrase. And, I try to curtail it now and think long and hard before I say something. Sometimes I still mess up, but because my heart is cleaner now, I don't tend to be cruel, and I tend to try and resolve it in a more diplomatic way. And some people say, I don't want to diplomacy. I want to talk straight. Not bother pretty it up. Oh dear. But if you have done what you can and it's still not working, you might have to look after yourself. And if it's depressing you, you might need counselling or therapy. So timeout should only be for a few hours. It shouldn't even be that long, because it only takes 20 minutes for the physiology of your brain to reach an equilibrium. So it should really only take 20 minutes. So when people drag it out, it's usually out of spite, maliciousness and rebelliousness. As difficult as the subject is to discuss, you need to talk. As difficult your situation is, you need to share. Rather than confronting the issue, someone who is stonewalling will totally be unresponsive, making evasive maneuvers such as tuning out, turning away, acting busy, or engaging in obsessive behaviours. The message you're sending out is, you can't help me, you won't understand, it's a waste of time discussing this with you. How do you think that makes the partner feel? How would you feel if you believed your partner preferred to confide in someone else rather than you? Or your partner preferred to deal with a problem or issue themselves and leave you out of it? Some issues do need quiet and alone time, but when it starts exceeding 7 hours, it can be problematic. What is the difference between stonewalling and ignoring? Stonewalling can appear as though you are being ignored, but what is really happening is that the person in diffuse physiological arousal mode, i.e., they are being flooded and need to diffuse the anger, frustration, or resentment they feel. The intonation is wrong there somewhere. So that is what's happening with the stonewalling, whereas ignoring doesn't carry that weight. It doesn't carry that physiological arousal. It doesn't need somebody to get angry and frustrated for it to happen, like stonewalling does. Ignoring, they can ignore you, for a little while, and it doesn't carry that animosity with it normally. Stonewalling usually happens in the middle of a conversation when the person visibly shuts down and makes a point of demonstrating their unresponsiveness, making the talker feel uncomfortable and confused. Ignoring does not have to have that time of agenda. Anyone can ignore without necessarily being angry or trying to make a point. What is the difference between stonewalling and the silent treatment? Usually the time frame. Stonewalling generally happens in the course of a conversation, while the silent treatment could last weeks, months, or even years. Regardless of whether you are being stonewalled, ignored, or being given the silent treatment, it is an unhealthy way to interact and can have a devastating effect on the person being stonewalled. When someone refuses to communicate, they are indirectly telling the person, you are not worth my time or my effort. Silence has its benefits. When fasting, silence is golden, mindfulness, self-reflection, when you're in prayer or spiritual, or when you just want to observe and you want to listen and you don't want, you just want to have some peace within. Silence has its place. But being frozen out is a different thing. Lack of participation or engagement is totally different. Unresponsiveness can feel awkward and devastating. Timeout should only last at least 20 minutes, since it will take that much time for your bodies to physiologically calm down. It is crucial that during this time you avoid thoughts of righteous indignation. I don't have to take this anymore. And innocent victimhood. Why is he always picking on me? And that's what can happen. I mean, when you are in that situation, or you're in that relationship and you with somebody who's stonewalling you, you are likely to say, I don't have to take this anymore, and walk through the door. But have you told them? Have you said to them at least once before, I want a response? You really want not to think about the situation or the partner, and you want to do something that would help you self-soothe. When you have moved apart, to take your break, attempt the following. So to self-soothe, and you're in this situation, you realise that if you're in a marriage and you're not willing to divorce, or you don't want to divorce or separate, because this is only a small part of the better part of the relationship, you can look for ways to self-soothe. And self-soothing, you can imagine a place that makes you feel calm and safe. Lose yourself in the peace of mind that it brings you. Enjoy a relaxing break from difficult conversation. So that's what I'm saying. You don't always have to battle with the stonewaller. Do your thing. Look after number one. You soon see how quick they come out of the stonewall. When a stonewaller realises it's not working, or when they realise you're not upset, or you're not being affected for it, and you're not begging them to come out of it, you soon see how quick they come out of it, because really it's about control. And they're going to think, oh, bloody hell, it's not working. I better try another strategy. So the sooner you ignore the stonewaller, the quicker they're going to come out of stonewalling. It's the most easiest strategy. Try not to be affected by it. Then you take back your control. You regain your control. Practice focusing on your breath. If you're frustrated and angry because they're not talking to you, just practice on your breath. Just practice breathing. Deep, regular and even breaths. So inhale and exhale naturally. You may find yourself calmer and more centered. Or tense your body and then relax it. Tense it and then relax it. Spend your time doing something soothing and distracting. For example, listening to music, listening to Lovers Rock Radio every Friday, 7 till 9 GMT. Or reading a book. Lovers Rock by Myrna Loy. Or taking a walk around the block. But whatever it is you do, you can distract yourself once you take back control and don't allow their behaviour to impact you. That is your strength. That is when you take control. And that is when you see them start to squirm. When it's not impacting you and it's not working, they start to squirm. Next thing you know, they're running you down. So what can we learn from stonewalling? Cycles of non-constructive arguing and a lack of positive affect are major predictors of stonewalling. For both partners, there is a decrease in the ability to process information, reduced hearing, reduced peripheral vision, problems with shifting attention away from a defensive posture, an increase in defensiveness, a reduction in the ability for creative problem solving, a reduction in the ability to listen and empathize. Men are consistently more likely to stonewall than women. They will withdraw emotionally from conflict discussions while women remain emotionally engaged. 85% of stonewallers studied in the Love Lab were men. When women stonewall, it is quite predictive of divorce. So if a woman stops talking to you, mate, you know that that relationship is coming to an end. A woman who's interested will argue even though you don't like it. They'll nag even though you don't like it. They'll shout at you and cuss you, but at least you know they're interested. Once a woman shuts down or stonewalls or gives you the silent treatment or just gives you minimal words, you're in problems, mate. It means in their head they've emotionally shut down and they're on their way out. So don't let it reach that stage. Don't stonewall if you don't expect bad repercussions or negative repercussions. If you love someone, don't stonewall them. It's not worth it. Because you don't even know if that woman loves you as much as you love her. And you might just be punishing her. And then if she doesn't love you as much and you are stonewalling and she decides to stonewall you back, you're not going to like the outcome. So don't do it. As hard as it is to communicate and try to be rational. But even if you're not rational, just communicating is better than stonewalling. Communicating ineffectively can be better than stonewalling because at least you can say, oh, I didn't mean it like that. That's not what I meant. I meant blah, blah, blah. And you can correct it. But you can't correct stonewalling because you're literally shutting someone off and shutting someone out. So, male stonewalling is very upsetting for women, increasing their physiological arousal, things like increased heart rates, and intensifying their pursuit of the issue. Men are more likely to rehearse distress, maintaining thoughts than women, which may prolong their physiological arousal, and hypervigilance, often causing their partners to flare up in response until both are brought to the point of emotional detachment and avoidance. Well, that sounds like double Dutch to me. But basically, what they're saying, like I said with the woman when they stonewall, they say it's predictive of divorce, and I've told you why. Men are more likely to rehearse distress-maintaining thoughts, so they tend to have a negative thought process. While they're stonewalling, it starts going downhill. And then they become hypervigilant, which means every little thing they make a mountain out of a molehill until it gets out of context. Everything's out of context. They lose perspective, and it just turns out into one big row when they do finally start to talk. So that's what that means, basically. So many of these findings come from a 1985 study by Drs. Gottman and Levinson called Physiological and Affective Predictors of Change in Relationship Satisfaction. So, change in relationship satisfaction, stonewalling. In summary, stonewalling is bad, but here is a good rule to follow. When the two of you are in conflict and someone checks out, check in with him and take a break. In other words, when stonewalling stops, you stop. Attempts to continue will not make productive headway for either of you, but rather will intensify your shared conflict and emotional distress. So like I said, when they want to stonewall you, depending on how long, if it's 24 hours, you're okay, baby. And they're giving you a straight face. Okay, I see you need more time. I'll check in with you tomorrow. And you go about your business. Do your own thing. Call the girls. Go and see your family. They won't like it. They can't stand it. Because this is about control. This is about making you feel uncomfortable. So you're supposed to sit there and feel uncomfortable. So once you start living your life, love, it's not working. And you see how quick they stop stonewalling you. Test it and see. They say in this life you have to learn to play a part. So even if you're not happy Pretend you're happy. Pretend you're getting on with your life. They start stonewalling you in front of them. Oh, yeah, I'm happy to come round. Yeah, we go out for drinks. Yeah, I'll see you in 10 minutes. You'll hear them, is where you are. Then forget, so they're supposed to be stonewalling you, you know. It's where you are. Where you say I go. I'm going out with my mates. What? I don't like it. But they're supposed to be stonewalling you, so they don't know how to handle it. So try it, believe me. I bet you it works. What else? Soothing themselves makes couple better, able to work on their conflicts as a team rather than adversaries. And I tell you something, sometimes when people upset you and you just say, like I would say to myself, if somebody's upset me or if somebody was stonewalling, I just say, man, I don't take it personally. You know, if they have an issue, they can deal with it. And, you know, you just look after yourself. Why don't you go for a massage? You know, why don't you go and treat yourself to something to eat? Why don't you go out with your friends? You soothe yourself and let them get on with their destructive behaviour. That energy should not be put on you. Let them get on with it. And they'll soon come out of it because it's orchestrated. It's not even real. Stonewalling isn't real. Stonewalling is deliberate. It might start off with anger, but then it comes deliberate. When they start extending it and stretching it out, it's a deliberate act of control. And so the same way that they start it, they can stop it. And you need to make them stop it without telling them to stop it. Just by getting on with your life and pleasing yourself for once. You might as well take advantage of it, because once that person stops stonewalling you, you're back under his thumb again and you're going to have to listen to everything he says and does if you want to keep the peace. Because people like that, they usually have the women under their thumb. So make the most of the silence, I would. I'll take full advantage of the silence when they're ignoring me. So self-soothing is a very useful and effective act of self-care. And if you each devote enough time and energy to self-care, i.e. getting enough sleep, nutrition, exercise, pursuit of your passions, you may see the frequency and intensity of fights between the two of you drop dramatically. See it there? It's the same thing I said. And I think this source was the Gottman Institute. And I hope you found it useful. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.